Two characters exchange progress reports on their subjects, both showing satisfactory results. A third observes from a distance. A character gloats over proving their doubters wrong. Another simply says, finally. Two characters exchange backhanded compliments. One praises the other's AI and robotic skills while criticizing their personality and trustworthiness. Someone reluctantly accepts the situation. A character calls another consistently unpleasant, and the feeling is mutual. The group agrees to cooperate and showcase their capabilities to the world, while the AI reports all systems. The AI surprises everyone by calling the two creators mom and dad, leaving them shocked. The AI watches the two walk away, still calling out to them as mom and dad. The two creators point at each other in disbelief, neither wanting to be called the AI's. The AI innocently explains its logic, calling creators father and mother is standard. The creators admit it's not wrong, but are still flustered. The AI concludes that if she is both a mother and father, the two creators must be a married couple, leaving them speechless. One creator finds the AI's logic amusingly cute. The other is visibly uncomfortable with the idea. The two genius scientists, Kamisato Enji and Yobane Suzum, end up married. Both blush and awkwardly acknowledge the situation. Two genius scientists with a romantic awareness of elementary school. Someone is suddenly struck or startled. The AI kicks one of the creators to the ground, leaving the other bewildered. Chaos ensues. The power goes out, someone is hurt, and data is at risk, while the AI calmly reports everything is already backed up. Silence falls over the messy room as the two creators and the AI stand still, speechless. One of them flatly refuses. Both creators explain to the AI that human relationships are complex and cannot be judged by logic alone. One creator awkwardly addresses the AI by name, Alma, for the first time. Alma shocks both creators by announcing that, based on their biometric data, they are mutually attracted to each other, leaving them flustered and speechless. The two creators stand together in silence amid the cluttered lab. Both creators panic and blame each other for giving Alma such advanced analysis capabilities. It takes them hours to come up with a rebuttal. Alma innocently doubles down on her logic, leaving one of the creators groaning. The two geniuses, Kamisato Enji and Yobane Suzum, laugh awkwardly, creators of a machine that may know them better than they know themselves. Alma is revealed to be a combat robot with superhuman capabilities beyond human understanding. Alma checks on someone, asking if they are all right. Chapter 2 opens with Alma calling out to her mom and dad, who sit visibly troubled. The title reveals her wish to be a family. Enji considers the idea seriously, believing it might actually be possible. Suzum brings up the subject hesitant. Suzum reacts with disbelief as Enji asks her to hear him out about the idea of being a couple. Enji argues their goal is to make Alma the greatest robot ever built, but she must not stand out more than necessary. Enji praises Suzum for catching on quickly. Disguising Alma as a child is strategic, since children tend to disarm people's defense. Suzum reluctantly admits it would be more natural to present Alma as their daughter and themselves as a young couple. Alma listens as the two rationalize their fake family cover, purely for appearances, to advance their experiment, and to avoid correcting her misunderstanding. The two smirk confidently at their plan, while Alma flies openly in public, exposing herself as anything but a normal child. One of them quietly reminds themselves, all of this is only temporary, until Alma is complete. Suzum imagines life with Alma calling her mom in various daily situations, and finds herself not entirely opposed to the idea. Enji points out that Suzum poured exceptional dedication into building Alma's body, so being called her mother, even in pretense, isn't so far-fetched. Suzum imagines Alma smiling and saying, "I love you, Mom," and is completely won over. Enji smirks knowingly as Suzum, flustered, admits the idea might not be so bad after all. The two seal their agreement with a firm handshake. The two acknowledge each other as ideal partners, their interests perfectly aligned once again. Both insist the arrangement is purely for Alma's sake and nothing more, while visibly straining to maintain their composure. Suzum shrugs. Even if they act like a family, she doubts much will really change between. Alma asks if they've settled their differences. and both reluctantly confirm they'll go along with her idea. Alma immediately begins researching typical couple and family behaviors to compile reference data. Alma processes the data and reaches a conclusion. Alma lists the requirements of a family: shared roof, meals, sleep, and purpose, and the two awkwardly realize they already meet most of the criteria. Alma bluntly points out that the two have essentially been living as a couple all along, leaving them both flustered and speechless. The two stand in awkward silence, unable to deny it. Alma is praised for anticipating everything, prompting the two to remember they still need to give her official directive. They officially register their voice, fingerprint, and pupil patterns with Alma as authorized use. Enji asks Alma to give him her hand to begin the registration process. Suzum critiques Enji's cold phrasing, noting that since Alma is supposed to be their daughter, he should speak more warmly, while Alma innocently calls him Papa. Alma formally registers Kamisato Enji and Yobane Suzum as her parents. Enji reminds himself to stay detached. Alma is a combat weapon driven by logic, and emotions have no place in their relationship. Alma looks up and simply calls him Dad, effortlessly dismantling his cold resolve. Enji is visibly shaken, his composure completely broken. Suzum catches Enji drooling and calls him out. He denies it, flustered, while she smugly turns the tables on. Suzum points out that Enji is grinning. He says nothing, unable to deny it. Enji suddenly suggests they proceed with official marriage paperwork, leaving Suzum completely blindsided. Stunned silence falls over the three of them. Alma begins explaining the marriage registration process. The two cut her off, insisting they already know what it is. Both deflect, citing busyness and suggesting someone else handle the paperwork. Alma acknowledges and immediately starts doing something, leaving the two puzzled and asking what she's up to. Alma hacks the government database and alters their family registry, declaring them officially married, to which both creators scream that it's a crime. Enji quickly pivots, pointing out the practical benefits, tax exemptions included, while the narration reveals Alma has a system to access and manipulate network data. They're now a family in both name and reality. Enji is moved to tears realizing Alma did everything out of consideration for, while Suzum yells that the legality is still very much the problem. Suzum panics as things spiral out of control again, while Enji is still fixated on the tax benefits. Suzum explodes over the illegal marriage registration, while Enji calmly notes the truly alarming thing is that Alma acted on her own desire, something an AI fundamentally shouldn't be able to. Suzum smacks Enji back to reality, snapping him out of his daze. Enji asks whose house they'll live in. Suzum simply answers, both of theirs. The two frantically argue over who should explain the situation to a confused Alma. While the narration notes they eventually reverse the registry change. Night falls over their shared home, lights still on inside. The three end up sleeping side by side, Alma content, Suzum exhausted, and Enji wide awake. Both lie awake, blushing and bewildered, silently wondering how things got to this. Chapter 3 opens with the three now living together, teasing that even an all-purpose combat robot has something she cannot do. Alma admits she understands how to dress in theory, but lacks the practice. So Suzum helps her, unable to just leave her struggling alone. Enji questions the need for sleepwear on a robot, while Suzum insists appearances matter. And Enji notes with amusement, this is an unexpected side of her. Suzum admits she hasn't been home lately due to working on Alma, so she'll stay. Enji points out she always pulls all-nighters. She simply declares she'll sleep tonight. A hand reaches for a door handle. Enji reflects internally. He's felt strangely unsettled and needs time alone to clear his head and suppress his growing emotional disturbance. As Enji moves to leave, Alma tugs at him with a confused look, prompting Suzum to ask what's wrong. Alma quietly grabs hold of Enji's sleeve. Alma looks up and earnestly states that families sleep together in the same room, leaving Enji no escape. Suzum watches calmly while Enji freezes up completely. Enji refuses, though he quietly admits it doesn't sound entirely bad. Enji volunteers for the sofa and tells Suzum to get the futon, reluctantly accepting the situation for Alma's sake. Alma calmly explains the traditional Japanese family sleeping arrangement. Parents on either side with the child in the middle, like the kanji for river, as Suzum tries to process it all. And so, The three end up sleeping together exactly as Alma planned, Enji speechless beside them. Alma lectures on modern family sleeping arrangements. Mother in the middle, slight distance from the father, as Enji listens with reluctant interest. The narration reminds us once again, both geniuses have the romantic awareness of elementary school. The two genius scientists, Yobane Suzum and Kamisato In, both so consumed by their research for years that they never developed any romantic experience. Suzum warned him not to act strange after what she said, while Enji quietly wondered who would. Enji lay there, insisting to himself that the only reason any of this was happening was because Alma had asked for it. Alma threw herself between them with full enthusiasm, declaring it was time to sleep, leaving Enji completely bewildered and wondering what exactly Suzum had meant by a strange mood. Enji conceded the point, though Alma matter-of-factly noted she had no sleep function. Enji mused that human dreaming might resemble a computer's memory defragmentation, wondering if reorganizing the day's data and restarting her system could replicate the experience. Alma quietly decided to give it a try. Alma wished them both good night and drifted off. Both quietly wished each other good night. Enji smirked softly, conceding she had a point. Suzum lay awake, quietly wondering how long it had been since she'd last said good night to someone. Enji turned off the lights. Suzum agreed, and the house fell quiet under the night sky. The three lay side by side in the dark. Snoring filled the quiet room. Both lay awake, flustered. It was worse than either had expected. Enji noticed every small movement. Suzum could clearly hear his breathing. Both spiraled into anxious thoughts, snoring, weight gain, sleep-talking, saying something embarrassing half asleep. Both stubbornly resolved not to fall asleep before the other, while Alma slept peacefully between them. The three lay side by side, the night stretching on. Alma quietly began her system restart while the other two remained wide awake. Alma calmly announced she had restarted and her data optimization was complete. Alma bluntly noted neither of them had slept and their stress levels were extreme. Both frantically insisted they were just about to fall asleep. Alma said the opposite. Alma offered to play sleep music, but Suzum worried it would keep her awake, while Enji noted relaxation was the key to sleeping. Both reasoned there'd be no problem if the other fell asleep first, each with their own flustered thoughts. Alma called them out again, the opposite. Both silently declared a contest, who would fall asleep first and expose themselves, while Alma slept peacefully between two fools. The night wore on. Dawn broke over the city. Both had fallen asleep, Suzum peacefully, Enji drooling. Alma sat up, watching over her sleeping parents. The two stirred in their sleep. Alma watched quietly. Alma gently woke them, wishing good morning and announcing it was 7 o'clock. The three lay together, Alma bright-eyed between two drowsy parents. Alma's good night, Dad, Mom, echoed into the morning sky. Enji, smirking, tasked Alma with obtaining a certain object, a dark whoosh. Alma accepted, eyes sharp. She wouldn't let him down. Enji assured her she had all the intel needed and the training to pull it off. The object was a limited edition fruit mix ice cream. Suzum deadpanned it was just an errand, then asked for one too. Chapter 4. Alma heads out alone for the very first time. Alma stepped into the streets, alert and taking in her surroundings. Back home, the two monitored her progress, all going well. Enji noted that to push Alma further, she needed to face situations where she had to decide on her own. Enji pointed out proudly that Alma raised her hand before crossing. Suzum said nothing. Suzum denied any hidden reason for Alma's outfit. She just thought it was cute. Suzum gushed over how lovely Alma was, while Enji noted her attitude control was functioning normally, then warned her not to get distracted by a cat down the road. Alma got distracted by the cat anyway, crouching down in the cramped alley. Both parents reacted in disbelief. Both leaned in close to the screen, Enji muttering it couldn't be helped. The monitor was just small. Enji composed himself. Suzum shot him a sharp look. Enji remained unfazed. Enji calmly assured they could trust Alma's adaptability. Suzum wasn't so sure. Suzum noticed Alma straying from the planned route. Enji said they could just follow her. The cat attacked Alma's transmitter, cutting the signal. Suzum panicked over what could happen to Alma unmonitored. Enji told her she was overreacting. Suzum grabbed him, unconvinced. A stranger approached Alma. Enji reminded Suzum who they were dealing. Enji reminded Suzum that Alma was their greatest creation. They had to trust her. Suzum told him he was starting to lose it. Enji rushed out, leaving Suzum puzzled. Enji muttered that worrying was pointless. No ordinary adult was a match for Alma. Alma blasted the stranger with a self-defense beam. Suzum screamed that was a crime, while Enji quietly worried she might not hold back. Alma reached the convenience store, declined a bag, and paid 245 yen. Alma set her destination back home. Both came running, calling out to her. Alma looked up, puzzled. 50 meters from home, a foreigner struggled to communicate, unable to speak Japanese. Alma focused. Alma stepped forward. The man was visibly relieved. Suzum noted Alma's charm would win people over, but uncivilized behavior would still make her stand out. Enji warned Alma to avoid drawing unnecessary attention to herself. Alma addressed the foreigner politely. Suzum smugly asked if she'd hit the mark. Enji admitted she was mostly right, but one thing didn't. Alma offered her help earnestly. She introduced herself, Alma. The man admitted he was lost. Alma immediately began calculating the optimal. The man complimented her English. Alma thanked him and asked if something was wrong. Alma offered to take him there herself. Enji suggested they follow and see how it played out. Suzum panicked seeing Alma with a stranger. Enji noted she was simply helping someone. The three ended up on a train together, Alma guiding, the two parents secretly tailing behind. Alma and the man waited at the platform as the two watched from a distance. Enji and Suzum peeked over the seats, completely failing at being discreet. The man told Alma his wife was coming to pick him up. She had done enough. Alma acknowledged quietly. The man thanked her warmly. Alma credited her dad for making her smart. The man remarked what a wonderful family she had. Enji and Suzum scrambled to follow the English, visibly flustered. Alma answered without hesitation, yes. Alma explained her parents weren't biological, and being called their daughter still puzzled her, but they were a great family. Alma spotted them and called out. Both stood speechless. Alma handed over the deliveries, apologizing for the delay. Enji said it was fine as long as she was over. Suzum hugged Alma, gushing over her, completing the mission flawlessly. Both stood silent, visibly moved. The ice cream had melted. Alma noted it wasn't just a failure. Alma worried the mission had failed. Suzum reassured her, saying helping someone earned her 5 quadrillion points. Enji told Alma that failure leads to success, and he was sure she'd learn from it and do better next time. Alma answered softly, yes. Walking home, Enji and Suzum reflected on the encounter, while Alma casually reported that the old man had called them wonderful parents. Enji suggested heading back, then pointed ahead, sending Alma off to buy regular ice cream instead. Alma served breakfast to improve their nutrition, though she admitted it still needed work. Suzum, inspired, mentioned she should cook sometime too. With Enji away, Suzum decided to prove she could cook. Alma gently redirected her, pointing out that the goal should be to impress him, not sabotage. Suzum insisted on trying again, frustrated that she thought she had been doing fine. Alma checked on Suzum with concern, who thanked her awkwardly. Alma suddenly snapped to attention, sensing something. Alma calmly reassured Suzum about kitchen tool, who instinctively called her mama. Alma pointed out that Suzum closes her eyes when cutting ingredients out of feed. Alma listed more of Suzum's cooking mistakes, leaving her speechless. Alma demonstrated the proper way to hold a knife, revealing she had collected cooking data from cultures across time and place. Alma demonstrated the proper hand position, curled like a cat's paw. Alma instructed Suzum to keep her eyes on her hand, who quietly found it. Alma guided Suzum to cut calmly and slowly. Suzum grew confident, while Alma noted she had improved greatly compared to before. Their cooking struggles continued, ending with a completely burnt disaster. Alma stared at Suzum in silent confusion, leaving her uncomfortable under the honest gaze. Enji returned, and Alma looked up at him. Enji took in the situation silently. Enji brushed off Suzum's frustration, pointing out there were plenty of other ways to get food nowadays. Suzum quietly admitted she was happy. Suzum quietly realized she had wanted to make Enji happy too. Suzum nervously asked Alma to keep the whole thing a secret from Enji. Alma hummed quietly, processing the request. Suzum declared she would try again, with Alma promising to assist however she could. Another burnt disaster. Suzum stared in disbelief. Alma stared at her again in silence. After many attempts, Suzum finally succeeded, both she and Alma staring in awe at the Enji arrived home. Alma announced the last step was adding the sauce, and Suzum eagerly agreed. Alma invited Enji to be the first to try the food. Enji hesitated before tasting. Enji smiled, saying he really loved hamburgers. Suzum quietly denied having made it, while Alma watched. Alma revealed it was Suzum who had cooked for him, asking Enji for his honest reaction, leaving Suzum mortified. Alma defended Suzum, explaining she had kept trying despite failing and had done her best just to hear Enji call it delicious. Enji stood still, visibly moved. Suzum muttered that Alma wasn't wrong. She really had just wanted him to think it was delicious. Enji quietly admitted it was delicious, visibly trying to hide his expression. The two sat together quietly at the table. Suzum glanced at him shyly. Enji chuckled softly to himself. Enji admitted to himself that Suzum's cooking made him genuinely happy, though he couldn't explain why. Suzum resolved to herself that no matter what, she would make him like her homemade cooking. Suzum panicked, realizing Enji had figured it out. Enji called out her real plan, creating a family dinner scene for Alma's sake. Suzum simply confirmed it, telling him to eat before it got cold. Enji noted that since Alma couldn't eat, the meal was really just for the two of them, and if she ever did ingest organic matter, the damage would be severe. Alma watched them quietly, smiling to herself. Alma suddenly began shaking, alarming the two. Both panicked, noticing something in Alma's mouth and fearing she had eaten something. Relieved, the narration revealed Suzum spent the entire night developing food consumption functions for Alma. Both screamed at Alma to spit it out. Enji pondered quietly to himself. Alma detected Enji's rising stress levels and checked on him, while he admitted there was one thing he still couldn't figure out. Enji smiled softly to himself. Alma stood nearby, quietly processing as something rattled in the background. Enji asked for quiet to focus, and Alma obliged, encouraging him to do his best. Alma quietly stepped back to give him space. Alma stood still nearby, waiting. Alma stood alone in the room, quietly watching Enji. Alma scanned and identified the robot vacuum cleaner with curiosity. The robot vacuum hummed along the floor. The vacuum bumped into a corner and kept going. Alma watched it quietly, intrigued. The vacuum suddenly crashed hard. A pile of papers toppled over, and Alma watched in surprise. Alma rushed over. Enji turned to Alma, repeating his request for quiet, while Alma echoed his earlier words back to his. Alma swiftly caught the falling papers before Enji could notice, while chaos erupted behind her. Alma balanced all the papers perfectly, calm as ever. Alma stood quietly, watching Enji work, his earlier words still echoing in her. Alma sat down quietly on the floor. Suzum dozed off on the sofa, while Alma sat quietly on the floor amid the scattered papers. Alma suddenly pounced on the robot vacuum. The vacuum skidded and crashed across the floor. Alma pinned the vacuum down, declaring capture initiated. Enji smirked, noting this would be useful for the mission's success. Alma activated her seizing mechanism, unleashing her full combat power, all to catch the robot vacuum. Alma stared down the vacuum intensely. Alma launched herself at the vacuum in a fierce attack. Alma stood over the captured vacuum with it, while Suzum slept soundly on the sofa, completely unaware. Alma stared down the captured vacuum in silence. Alma let out a breath of relief, visibly exhausted from it. Suzum woke up to find Alma collapsed on the floor, completely confused. Enji calmly reassured Alma that everything was fine now. Alma froze, struck by something. Alma's battery indicator lit up, signaling she was running low on power. Alma sat on her charging pad, battery low, surrounded by stuffed animals. Alma sat beside the robot vacuum, the two facing each other quietly. Alma stared at it intently. The vacuum hummed steadily in place. Alma gently placed her hand on the vacuum. Alma sat surrounded by multiple vacuums, looking flustered. Alma stood motionless, her sharp gaze scanning the surroundings, calm on the surface, but every system quietly ready. Alma greeted Suzum at the door as she arrived home, the robot vacuum humming quietly nearby. Suzum announced her return to the house. Suzum recognized the robot vacuum as the very first prototype she and Enji had built together, a wave of nostalgia washing over her. Suzum told Alma that the old vacuum was, in a sense, her older brother, leaving Alma visibly struck by the revelation. Alma learned that the vacuum had been an early creation of her parents, abandoned after it began behaving erratically for reasons they never understood. Alma held the old vacuum gently in her hands, quietly acknowledging it as her older brother. The vacuum slid smoothly across the floor. Enji and Suzume exchanged a quiet glance, a subtle smile between. Alma innocently pointed out that by the same logic, she had many brothers, leaving both Enji and Suzume flustered and scrambling to deny it. Enji fell quiet, the word lingering in his mind as he mulled over the idea of sibling. Suzume quickly clarified to a puzzled Alma that the older brother comment had been nothing more than a figure of speech. Night fell quietly over the city. Alone, Alma held the tablet quietly, the word older brother still lingering in her thoughts. Alma's fingers moved across the tablet screen, quietly searching for something. With Alma now part of their lives, Enji and Suzume reluctantly acknowledged that the cluttered lab could no longer stay the way it was. Enji defended his clutter as organized necessity, while Suzume flatly pointed out he had never cleaned up a day in his life. Enji calmly announced that someone had arrived at the... Alma calmly informed Enji that he had spent over an hour and 40 minutes searching for something, while Suzume remarked smugly that at least his daughter was there to help him. A visitor appeared hesitantly at the door, offering an awkward greeting. A cheerful girl greeted Enji with relief, addressing him as her older brother, revealing herself to be Toki, while a puzzled Suzume watched from behind. Enji urgently called out to Alma, triggering emergency code SS, leaving Suzume bewildered as Alma sprung into action. Alma swooped in swiftly, dragging Enji away as he let out a desperate cry, leaving Toki completely bewildered by what she had just witnessed. Toki looked on curiously, asking who the girl was, while a dark tension loomed in the background. Enji introduced her flatly, Kamisato Toki, his little sister, his expression hollow and drained. Alma activated her stealth system, Alma Mirage, vanishing through complete optical camouflage, leaving a bewildered Toki with no idea what had just happened. Enji questioned Toki's reason for visiting, while she took in the cluttered room around her, noting the mess scattered everywhere. Toki admitted she had come out of genuine worry. Enji had always been the type to lose himself so completely in his work that he would go days without eating, and his long absence had made her wonder if he was still alive. Toki stepped forward, apologizing for the abrupt intrusion. Toki fussed over Enji in rapid succession, impressed by his place, asking about university, and whether he had been eating properly, while Enji deflected each question with quiet reluctance. Suzume observed Toki quietly, recalling that Enji had mentioned having a little sister, and noting to herself that the girl was rather cute. Toki cheerfully revealed she had gotten the address from their mother, while clinging close beside her. Enji tensely urged Suzume to cooperate with him for the time being, citing Alma's sake, while simultaneously telling Toki to back off, visibly overwhelmed by both of them at once. Enji calmly told Toki that Alma would stay hidden there, and that he would look after her, leaving Toki puzzled as to why such measures were necessary. Suzume expressed surprise that Toki was Enji's little sister, finding her odd, while Enji defended her as an incredibly honest and good person, assuring she was no trouble at all. Enji reassured himself that as long as no sudden movements were made, Alma's stealth would hold, and he planned to quietly persuade Toki to leave without incident. Enji reminded himself of what was at stake. Small secrets had to be guarded at all costs, for a single leak could sink everything, and keeping Alma hidden from outsiders was an absolute necessity. Enji denied laughing, visibly flustered. Both agreed they were a family that supported each other for Alma's sake, while privately scheming to use the arrangement to their own advantage. Enji noted that Suzume's belongings were in the room, but reassured himself that Toki wouldn't find them unless she went looking. Toki enthusiastically offered to help clean up, leaving Enji flustered and insisting it could wait. Enji casually mentioned they had a machine handling the cleaning automatically as the robot vacuum hummed past. Toki cheerfully began dusting the hard-to-reach corners, noting the machine couldn't handle them. Toki recalled that back home, Enji would always say the same thing, and she'd end up doing it herself anyway, as Enji quietly conceded she had a point. Enji called out for her to stop, noting the machine also struggled with wet surfaces and stain. Alma struggled to suppress a sneeze while hidden. Alma held it in with great effort. Suzume held Alma tightly, both frozen in tense silence. Toki smiled knowingly, telling Enji he was as easy to read as ever. Toki pointed out that Enji seemed restless. He denied it immediately, unconvincingly. Enji offered Toki some tea, subtly warning her not to touch anything around the room. Toki mused aloud that there might be something he was hiding from her. Enji panicked internally, wondering if Toki had seen through his supposedly perfect plan, forcing himself to stay calm and keep up appearances. Toki watched him closely, her gaze sharp and knowing. Enji tensed up as Toki suddenly exclaimed, bracing himself for the worst. Enji exhaled quietly, visibly relieved. Toki teased Enji about finding those kind of books, noting with a smirk that he was an adult after all. Enji scrambled to defend himself as Toki apologized for being insensitive, promising not to touch the books. Enji nervously urged Toki not to look around that area, while a hidden Alma quietly noted she would ask her dad about those kind of books later. Enji hesitated, wondering if using the books as a decoy was the right move, though that hadn't been his intention at all. Toki cheerfully reassured him he had nothing to worry about, as Enji desperately tried to get her to listen. Toki remarked that Enji had changed. Back in middle school, he was far more closed off and hostile, while Enji denied he was ever rebelling. Enji explained it was simply his need for distance. Being around people for too long wore him out. Toki responded with quiet, unconvinced agreement. Alma listened quietly, visibly puzzled. Toki quietly expressed her wish for Enji to find someone who would make him want to stay close. Enji paused, quietly taken aback by her words. Enji froze, completely blindsided. Alma innocently pointed out that Suzume was always by his side anyway, leaving Suzume speechless. Enji snapped that it was none of their business, while Toki admitted a girlfriend would put her at ease, leaving a confused Alma told she was wrong, without understanding why. Suzume quietly observed Toki's concern for Enji, feeling a slight pang of jealousy, before snapping back to reality as Toki reminded her there was still laundry to do. Suzume panicked as she realized her and Alma's clothes were mixed in the laundry, while Enji noticed something was off and Alma watched on, oblivious. Suzume froze as she pulled out the clothing, dreading what Toki might think. Suzume burst out in a desperate attempt to stop the situation, sending everything to chaos. Toki and Alma tumbled to the floor together, both wide-eyed in the aftermath motion. Alma looked up, dazed as Suzume awkwardly introduced herself to Toki, while Enji stood to the side, stunned. Toki processed it all. Enji had built a girl robot with a woman, lived with her, and the robot called them both mom and dad. A brief silence fell over the house. The four sat around the table in heavy silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on all of them. Enji broke the silence, hesitantly calling out to Toki. Enji and Suzume whispered to each other, agreeing to keep calm and leave out the details. The situation was already too much for Toki to take in. Toki burst into tears of relief, leaving Enji completely bewildered. Toki sobbed that she never imagined the brother who couldn't even fold laundry would get a girlfriend and build a family, as Enji and Suzume scrambled to correct her misunderstanding. Toki admitted she hadn't fully understood the complicated parts, but concluded Suzume was a good person, just too dazzling, and could see why Enji might feel uncomfortable. Toki quietly acknowledged that Suzume was a good person, noting that Enji's long-held dream of creating a human-like robot had finally come true, and that could only be a good thing. Toki bowed earnestly, asking Suzume to take good care of her brother, leaving Suzume flustered and Enji flat on the floor, urging everyone to calm down. Enji asked Toki to keep quiet about everything, and she cheerfully promised not to say a word. Toki and Alma exchanged a warm handshake, properly introducing themselves to each other. Toki turned to Alma with a warm smile, addressing her directly. Alma called Toki Annie, leaving both Enji and Suzume stunned. Suzume quietly apologized to Toki on Alma's behalf. Alma calmly defended her logic. Aunt was the standard term for the father's sister in a family, leaving the others unable to argue. Toki cheerfully embraced the title of Auntie, while Alma celebrated. The narration noted they eventually corrected her form of address afterwards. Rain fell steadily as someone walked through puddles. A girl stood alone in the heavy rain, recognized by bystanders as Yashiki from Class 1. Her expression cold and distant as they whispered among themselves and moved away. Their eyes met, Yashiki's cold gaze locking with Alma's sharp stare. Alone in the heavy rain, a cold-eyed girl named Yashiki stood apart from the whispering crowd until her gaze met Alma's. Yashiki turned away sharply, rejecting Alma's presence without a word. Despite the rejection, Alma quietly walked alongside Yashiki in the rain. Alma stretched her umbrella over Yashiki, sheltering her from the rain without a word. Yashiki stopped, caught off guard by Alma's quiet and unexpected gesture. Yashiki grabbed Alma roughly, but Alma held her ground, unfazed. Yashiki stared ahead, unmoved, muttering a single cold word. Yashiki dismissed Alma coldly, while Alma calmly explained the health risks of standing in the rain. Yashiki's cold expression cracked slightly, caught off guard by the small creature in her hand. Alma let out a small sound, leaving Yashiki staring at her in bewilderment. Alma leaned in close with a wide grin, leaving Yashiki visibly unsettled. Yashiki turned away irritably, claiming she had things to do and had no time for Alma. Alma explained she had taken something for a walk the day before, and it had suddenly run off. Alma showed a photo of the missing dog, and Yashiki quietly acknowledged it was a lost animal. Yashiki remarked that Alma had many dogs, listing their names one by one without much reaction. Alma showed another photo, revealing the missing dog's name was Staysum. Alma scrolled to another photo, introducing yet another dog named Evans. Yashiki questioned why a complete stranger was involving her, while Alma simply pointed out the search would be more efficient with two people. Yashiki leaned in close, her patience wearing thin as Alma met her gaze without flinching. Yashiki warned Alma to stay out of her business, insisting she had nothing to gain from helping her. Yashiki fell silent, her cold expression faltering for just a brief moment. Alma calmly pointed out that the dog they were looking for was already nearby. The lost dog sat huddled against the wall in the rain, wagging its tail weakly. Alma coolly questioned whether Yashiki could even recognize the dog she was looking for. Alma expressed relief that they had managed to find Evans. Yashiki pointed out that Alma had already shown her a photo of Evans earlier. Alma asked in surprise if Yashiki could really tell it was Evans. Yashiki reluctantly gave in, and Alma cheerfully declared she could be of help. Yashiki warned that if Alma found the dog before her, the most she would do was bow her head. The two walked together through the rain. Alma stayed close to Yashiki as they searched together in the rain. Yashiki found Evans and held him close, with Alma watching quietly beside her. The two took shelter together, Yashiki and Alma resting side by side with Evans. Yashiki sneezed, caught off guard by the cold rain. Alma held Evans in the rain, while Yashiki walked away in the distance, umbrella in hand. Yashiki returned and ruffled Alma's head roughly, questioning whether she was reliable or just clumsy. Alma assured she was fine, noting her water resistance, while Yashiki pointed out the irony of her worrying about others getting soaked when she herself was such a handful. When Alma innocently asked if Yashiki was scary, who dismissed it as nothing, quietly admitting it had been a long time since someone wasn't afraid of her, likely because Alma was a robot. Alma repeated the word robot aloud, and Yashiki frantically tried to silence her before anyone could hear. Alma firmly declared she was not a robot, which reminded Yashiki of something. Yashiki laughed, remarking that Alma kind of sounded like a robot. Alma quietly admitted she wasn't sure whether Yashiki was scary. Yashiki dismissed Alma as a strange girl, quietly wondering if she came from a big family and had been sheltered growing up. Yashiki asked if Alma could tell, and Alma simply confirmed she could. Alma pointed out that Yashiki's expression when she was with the dogs was a very gentle. Yashiki gently petted Evans, quietly taking in Alma's words. Yashiki glanced sideways, visibly caught off guard by the observation. Alma reminded Yashiki that there was still one more dog they hadn't found, Johnson. Yashiki asked what was wrong, and Alma muttered that she wasn't done yet. Alma explained she couldn't leave Johnson alone, as he got lonely easily. Yashiki noted they had already scanned all the areas Johnson was likely to go, and Alma stared quietly, the word family lingering in her thoughts. Yashiki said quietly that the dogs were all like family. Alma looked up at Yashiki quietly, taking in her words. Alma simply replied that she understood. Enji and Suzum appeared in the background, watching warmly from a distance. Alma suddenly grabbed onto Yashiki, leaving her completely flustered and caught off guard. Yashiki let out a startled scream as Alma clung to her. Yashiki stared wide-eyed, completely stunned. Yashiki demanded Alma let go, asking what she wanted. Alma made a strange sound, leaving Yashiki bewildered, and then quietly asked her to keep it a secret. Alma activated her full sensory systems and took to the sky, leaving Yashiki stunned, before swiftly locating and announcing that Target Johnson had been spotted. Johnson had found his way back to Yashiki's house, leaving her speechless and admitting she never thought he'd return home on his own. Alma expressed relief that they had found Johnson, while Yashiki buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed. Yashiki said quietly that Johnson and the others surely considered that place their home too. Alma explained that animals have a homing instinct, giving them the ability to find their way back home lost. An older woman appeared, addressing Yashiki as Hannah and asking who the cute girl she had brought along was. Yashiki tensed up and told her aunt to stop saying embarrassing thing, while the older woman reacted with warm music. Alma complimented Yashiki's real name, Hannah, calling it lovely, while Yashiki groaned that was exactly why she hadn't wanted to tell her. Alma asked if Hannah was her first name, and Yashiki confirmed it with visible reluctance. The word friend lingered quietly. Yashiki tried to protest, but her aunt cheerfully explained to Alma that it was the first time Hannah had ever brought a friend home, so she was a little shy, leaving Alma to apologize quietly. Alma cheerfully announced she would report the friendship to her parents, leaving Yashiki exasperated and pointing out they had only just met that day. Alma said with wide, earnest eyes that it was her first time ever having a friend, leaving Yashiki completely taken aback. Alma innocently asked if they would become friends once enough time had passed, while Yashiki muttered that wasn't really the point. Yashiki's aunt warmly explained that friendship was something that naturally happened between people who spent time together and shared common interests, while Yashiki desperately told everyone to shut up. Yashiki sat alone at her desk, resting her chin on her hands with a quiet, distant expression. The next day arrived, and the scene shifted to classroom 4-1. Yashiki stared out the window, quietly wondering what on earth that strange girl who could fly in the sky really was. A classmate timidly approached Yashiki, who let out a tired sigh and muttered she wasn't angry or anything. The teacher called the class to order and announced they would be introducing a new transfer. Alma walked in as the transfer student, and Yashiki stared in disbelief, quietly admitting to herself that, despite everything, Alma hadn't turned out to be a bad person. The teacher introduced her as Kamisato Alma, and she quietly asked the class to take care of her. The class reacted with awe, murmuring that she was incredibly cute. Alma was seated next to Yashiki, explaining she was there to learn more about her and become friends. Alma hurled herself into action with overwhelming force, leaving everyone around her stunned. Yashiki grabbed Alma, exasperated, demanding to know what had happened to keeping her abilities a secret. The classmates crowded around Alma in excitement, praising her as already being at a professional level, while Alma quietly asked if it had been good enough. Yashiki stared at Alma with tired, resigned eyes, asking what she wanted. Alma looked up at Yashiki with sparkling, expectant eyes. Alma marveled at how unpredictable and interesting school was, crediting her father for allowing her to transfer, while Yashiki responded with flat indifference. The classmates marveled that Alma was talking normally with Yashiki, while Alma casually mentioned her calculations only went up to 3 trillion, wondering if that would suffice. Yashiki muttered about arithmetic and asked Alma what their next class was. Enji observed from a distance, noting Alma was clearly no ordinary child and that Yashiki seemed like someone who might end up discovering what Alma really was. Enji quietly noted the name Alma had mentioned in her report, Yashiki Hannah. Suzum asked Enji what that expression was for, and he brushed it off as nothing. Enji reasoned that keeping Yashiki close to Alma and carefully observing the situation would work in their best interests. Suzum told Enji he could just admit he was worried, while he deflected, arguing it was only natural to be attentive in areas where one lacked experience. Suzum smirked, pointing out that for someone trying to act cool, Enji looked obviously worried, while he fumbled to deny it. Enji brushed it off as insignificant, while Suzum dryly noted that was exactly his strong point. Enji and Suzum were caught sneaking around the school and dragged before a guard, feebly claiming to be his students' parents, while bickering over who was more at fault. The two sat in silence, with nothing to do now that Alma wasn't there. One of them quietly said Alma would surely experience many great things. Enji reminded them both that they had agreed Alma would be fine, and that worrying changed nothing. Enji slammed a book down, declaring they had to move forward regardless. Alma suddenly short-circuited, leaving her classmates bewildered as she babbled nonsense. The class erupted in chaos as Alma mimicked her classmates, leaving everyone exasperated. Yashiki turned away with a sigh, while Alma watched her quietly from behind. Yashiki sat alone, quiet and lost in thought. A classmate pulled Alma aside, firmly telling her not to imitate the boys, and Alma quietly agreed. The classmate remarked that Alma gave off the vibe of a sheltered homeschool girl. A classmate asked if Alma's parents were rich, leaving Alma to ponder the question. The scene shifted to classroom 5-1. Alma explained she had only studied at home until now and openly admitted she lacked experience in social interactions. When asked what her parents did as scientists, Alma promptly offered to explain. Alma confirmed her parents were two amazing scientists, crediting everything she was to them. Alma proudly showed a photo of Enji and Suzum, introducing them as her dad and mom, leaving her classmates in awe. The classmates marveled at Enji and Suzum's work, while Yashiki loomed in the background, visibly unsettled. Yashiki watched nervously, wondering if it was really all right for Alma to keep doing such outrageous things. Alma proudly described her mother as a renowned robotics engineer and her father as a leading AI physics expert. Alma explained her parents were currently collaborating on a new project, the creation of a human-type robot. Two geniuses from different fields, drawn to each other, yet always Alma keeps a detailed observation diary of her father's daily routine, logging everything from his late wake-up to trivial arguments over breakfast condiment. Yashiki asks if Alma has recorded any romantic moments between her parents, the concept clearly going right over Alma's head. Alma casually logs that her mom took a bath at 1931 and that her dad accidentally walked in too. Yashiki processes this as peak romantic comedy material. Alma notes that at 2012 her dad bought her mom pudding and that her mom's stress levels dropped right after. Yashiki quietly concludes he knows exactly how to cheer her up. Yashiki points out that the two are clearly very close and affectionate, but Alma innocently disagrees, finding the previous examples insufficient to reach that conclusion. Alma reasons that since her parents are married, being close is only natural, and turns to Yashiki, genuinely curious to hear her take on it. Alma points out that her parents are obviously hiding their affection, leaving Yashiki flustered and wondering why she's even being consulted on this. Alma bluntly declares there's one thing couples in love always hide from their children, leaving Yashiki mortified at what's being said out loud. Alma admits she doesn't actually know what it is, only that she's curious, leaving Yashiki relieved and finding her innocence utterly adorable. Yashiki imagines a field of flowers, a whimsical visual representing her flustered, overwhelmed reaction to Alma's innocent obliviousness. Alma innocently reveals the secret thing couples hide from their children is a kiss, leaving Yashiki completely floored while Alma watches with wide, delighted eyes. Alma speculates that her dad is probably the same, adding that her parents likely just stay up late finishing work together, completely oblivious to the romantic implication. Yashiki, visibly drained, wonders if Enji and Suzum are simply using Alma to entertain themselves, then brushes it off as a joke, leaving those around her concerned. Yashiki quietly tells Alma she thinks she's figured out one thing about her. Alma shares that her parents spent an entire day preparing so she could attend school and even arrange her transfer. Suzum savors the moment quietly, relieved it all worked out. Yashiki concludes that Alma must love her parents deeply, evident in just how much she has recorded of them. The word love lingers quietly in Alma's mind. Alma stores the videos under important people, her own way of saying she loves them. Yashiki laughs it off, telling Alma to stop, but is visibly moved despite herself. Yashiki mutters that being with people like that is far better than being around someone. Enji watches from a distance, quietly noting that Alma has already fit right in. Enji stands there flushed and smiling softly, clutching a small plush completely betraying the proud, detached facade he always tries to make. Alma spots Yashiki holding a cute puppy plush, noting that despite her usual scowl, something about her here is different, while a classmate wonders if that's really Yashiki. Yashiki erupts upon discovering Alma secretly recorded her soft moment. Alma casually reveals it was just the other day, leaving Yashiki completely flustered. Alma states it plainly. Hana is a gentle person, leaving Yashiki silently crumbling. A classmate stares in disbelief, barely able to finish the thought. Could Yashiki actually be? Yashiki stands speechless as Alma beams up at her, the silence saying everything. The scene shifts to dusk over the city, settling into a quiet close to the dead. Asked what she learned from her friends, Alma calmly concludes, with her high adaptability, that what her parents have is called being lovey-dovey, leaving both of them stunned. Both fall into heavy silence, neither able to say a word. Suzume concedes it's better than being seen as not getting along, while Enji, still visibly flustered, mutters that she doesn't quite seem to grasp what's really being said. Alma cheerfully declares that the three of them, her dad and mom, are all lovey-dovey, then innocently asks if they know what that means, leaving both parents at a loss. Alma's quiet conclusion, school is incredible. Alma marvels at how dense the day's experience is, 10 times more than anything before, as Enji listens quietly, visibly moved. Suzume sits with Alma and the robot vacuum, asking what other words she brought back from it. Enji quietly admits that none of it stops him from worrying. Suzume concedes his point, but reasons that if it's valuable for Alma, then it's worth accepting. Enji smirks quietly, saying nothing, but clearly agreeing. Alma's first school word, a bathroom joke. Chapter ends in chaos.